Right now, there are kids who have been brought into foster care that do not have a home to go to. So they are forced to sleep in an office, a hotel, different shelters or group homes. And this is a pretty common problem that's happening all over the US. And I hear from recruiters and agencies all the time that they really struggle with recruiting, specifically for foster parents of older youth. This is a common problem. I'm hearing this from a lot of people. I've had many conversations with recruiters about how do we find foster homes for older youth. So I asked my audience, I put it out there and I said, hey, if you foster tweens or teens, how were you specifically recruited? And so today I am just sharing what was shared with me. This will be quick and it's specifically for people who are recruiting or working with foster parents and trying to find more homes for older youth in foster care. And before I begin, I do want to just acknowledge the bigger picture here, and the bigger problems is that we're removing too many kids. We do not have the homes or the support services to serve them. And we need more community help for families so that it does not come to this. It does not come to foster care. So I acknowledge that this is a Band-Aid and does not fix the bigger picture, but there are kids sleeping in offices. And I hate that that's happening. They need to be in a home. So here we go. The overarching theme of people who are fostering tweens and teens is that they have experience with this age group. That tends to be the kind of like through line for everything. So these are teachers, coaches, people who volunteer with older youth, people who work in the medical profession. These are people who are already in community and work with teens and tweens. Or it is people who maybe had biological children that they raised and maybe they're empty nesters and feel more familiar and comfortable with an older age group. Or these are foster parents who learned about caring for older children over time. And I'm going to get to that, but that was like an interesting insight that I learned from listening to all of the foster parents, that there is an education piece to not just recruiting and training, but also serving these foster families throughout their foster care experiences. There was also definitely a lifestyle fit that people talked about. And that is that they wanted school-age children so that they could work a full-time job. They maybe did not want to have to go out and purchase all of the expensive supplies for babies, strollers, high chairs, diapering, all of that is very pricey and just a totally different type of fostering because you need all of this equipment. They enjoyed spending time with older children that they could chat with and go on fun adventures with and watch TV with. It was just a different lifestyle choice. And I think that having those conversations with foster parents about what type of lifestyle they're looking for as they are fostering may be beneficial than just saying, what age group are you comfortable fostering? From what I heard from people, it was more about like, what are you comfortable in your life? Now you might be thinking, I can't ask a teacher or a nurse to do more, but I find that this is who is stepping in to help, which does sort of track. Typically people in helping professions are more likely to continue to help in other parts of their life. And so it isn't asking too much to go to a PTA meeting or a union meeting to just share for 5 minutes because maybe someone is thinking about it or has come across a youth in foster care and it's kind of been in their mind already and you are just coming in with information at the right time. Also, people in these professions may want to make a change. They may want to use those skills in a different way. I also heard from people who were like, I never wanted to foster teens or I never thought I would foster, but here I am with a 16-year-old. And that is a process that typically happens over time. I heard this story repeated. During training, they heard directly from foster parents of teens, like the day-to-day, what that looked like. They came in and did a Q&A. People would submit questions and they would answer them honestly. And so this really brought to life what the day-to-day was like with an older youth in foster care. That was sort of the first introduction. There were also opportunities to provide respite for older youth. And so, workers would reach out and be like, hey, it's just for a week or just a weekend. Could you provide respite? And that was a way that foster parents would get to know youth and also realize like, hey, I can foster any age. I can foster older children. And they became more comfortable with that. There were also people that told me how they got to know youth while they were in a treatment center or a group home. And so there were meet and greets that kind of led up into the youth moving in permanently. And then I also heard from people who just had prior experience. So this means that they were either in foster care themselves and as a teenager experienced foster care and really wanted to step in that way for youth currently being impacted by foster care, or they grew up in a foster family and had experience with all the ages, or maybe just older youth as well. And the reason I share all of this, because these are obviously the targeted ads, the marketing messages, and where to go to find people who might be interested in fostering older youth. But it's also important that this is not just the work of the recruiter and the people in training, but also the work of all the caseworkers who are talking with foster families and exploring different placements and talking through what day-to-day life could be like, what support would look like, depending on the child they take in. And finally, the last group, which was a smaller group, but definitely a meaningful group, are the people that really resonated with a specific message. So for example, an LGBTQ couple heard about LGBTQ youth in foster care that weren't in affirming homes. And that was a message that really resonated with them and then encouraged them to say, hey, we want to foster tweens and teens, specifically open to LGBTQ youth who are needing an affirming home. There were also single women who heard about teens in foster care, girls who have been sexually abused and feel most comfortable with just a single female foster mother. And that was a message that really connected with some people. And also some mentioned that it was just a well-timed placement call. They got a call for a youth older than the age range that they had identified and heard the story, heard about the youth, and without pressure, of course, because I also heard from people that were like, I was pressured into doing this and I shouldn't have said yes. But they heard the message, they got the call, they considered it thoughtfully and said yes. And so sometimes it is just timing and that messaging that comes through. So hopefully these messages kind of help you direct to the right groups of people. Very targeted outreach was resonating and working for a lot of these foster parents. And I did hear from some that the agency required them to at least provide respite to a tween or teen as part of their licensing and getting approved. And so it's something to consider, especially if there is a significant crisis in your area. Of course, we want to make sure that it's still the right match, it's still the right environment for each individual youth. Okay, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is that helpful? Is that something that's working for you already? What's the missing link for you? Because I've received a ton of information and I'm happy to share more about what was shared with me in terms of how they were recruited and why they continued to foster tweens and teens.